Welcome back. It's fast approaching the hour of 8 o'clock. You're watching Morning at NTV. For those that went with us into the break, we're glad you're still with us. If you're just joining us from wherever you're watching, this is Morning at NTV, and you find us at the Kickstarter segment, where we shall be examining government's move to bail out distressed firms. I'll be introducing my guests very shortly, but let me first serve you with a preamble. Last week during plenary, the Deputy Chairperson of the Budget Committee, Honorable Remigio Achia, presented the committee's report approving the supplementary budget in which the government initiated the process of acquiring equity in Day Biopharma Limited as a strategic intervention to increase the local production of pharmaceutical products. Day Pharma Limited is being allocated a staggering 578.4 billion Uganda shillings to enable it comfortably meet its debt obligations and operational requirements. This move has been questioned by many, including some members of parliament who happen to be our guests this morning, and whether it makes sense. Is it the latest move to oil the wheels of economics, or could this find itself fanning the ugly flames of politics? I'm joined on the show by the MP for Otuke County, Paul Omara. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
I'm also joined by Katikamu South MP, Hassan Chirumira. Many thanks.
Good morning, viewers.
And on my extreme left, the economist extraordinaire, JULIUS MUKUNDA, Executive Director at CS Park. Many thanks for making it to the show.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers.
Let's begin with Honorable Paul Omara. When the Ugandan audience hears the word bailout a distressed firm, it is perfect economics. This is stuff that we've had across the world. When certain companies or firms must not fail. I do not know whether in this particular case of Day Biopharma Limited, it's a case of a firm that cannot and must not fail as a result of the debt obligations that it finds itself grappling with, or is it a case of the latest political card being dished within the corridors of Parliament? That's a question for you.
That's a tough question this morning. Thank you very much. The idea of bailing distressed companies is not a common phenomenon in Uganda only, but it has happened even in very developed economies like the US. You saw the actions that were taken by President Obama to rescue Ford or the American car companies, where billions and billions of US dollars were spent, public funds, to rescue those companies. The one of Day, it's also a seriously distressed company, but the argument that was advanced is that this is a strategic company that, in effect, help us to manufacture our own medicine. There are statements that were made that they have patents of almost about 3,000 types of drugs that they would be able to manufacture for the country and save almost to a tune of $210 million of drugs imports for the country. So if on the face of it, the justification looks reasonable. So when the matter, I'm a member of the Budget Committee, when the matter came to the Budget Committee, we actually realized that indeed this is a company that should be supported. But then the question we asked was, for us to support it as government and as representatives of the people, we want to know who are the directors of these companies through articles and memorandum of association. What is the valuation of this company, the value actually which has been done? Because there was allegation that this company has spent in so far $500 million. And we said, we can't take the face value of the statements being made. We need to go and do proper valuation so that we know. Then we want to know how many shares are being sold to us and at what price. Because if you want 578.4 billion, that is above 1 trillion shillings, is a humongous amount of money. So we wanted to know the stake of the nation in the factory. Right. And that can only happen through valuation. And audited accounts for the company. We wanted to know the debt position. There are quite a litany of things that were brought. But we kind of deferred the decision on that for a day, pending these reports to come. But unfortunately, we did not receive the reports, apart from the letter of comfort from the Minister of Science and Technology, Dr. Musenero, Honorable Dr. Musenero, stating that the government will make sure all this that we have asked as Parliament is in place before the money is what? Disbursed. So we put that as a condition precedent in our recommendation to the House. That is what we did. And when we got into the House, in the majority report, which I signed, took the day. And so now, as Parliament, what we approved is actually the money, the vote, the 578.4. How the disbursement and the process of making sure that the conditions in our report or approval is met is now up to the executive. It's up to the Minister of Finance, up to the Minister of Science and Technology. It's up to them to making sure that this thing is actually properly met.
All right, but
then I should also say, because in terms of your headline, you're saying is the government policy of bailing out distressed companies. Now, that also has not been put forward as a policy, because that's as a committee of budget and also finance, we are saying if there is a change in government policy that companies should be supported, then we need to put a criteria in place. It should come as a government policy so that we all understand, so that we know which company qualifies, or is it this is being dished out to particular companies of interest, or this is something where a company in Acholi, in West Nile, in Koboko, it can be rescued. Yeah.
All right, let's just go to Honorable Chirumira. In light of the Public Finance Management Act, does this particular move meet the requirements? Of course, when the Honorable Mara speaks about the need for a policy, it means we are acting within a gray area where we do not know who can be actually bailed out and who cannot, for that matter.
If you could allow, I wanted to bring into context some of the views raised by the Honorable Obara, especially when it comes to funding these projects. He mentioned that Obama once funded Ford. But these are established companies that are employing so many people in that country, contributing massively to the economics of that country. If you're looking at DEI now and its contribution towards Uganda's economics, towards its contribution in terms of employing Ugandans, it's very minimal. But just putting that aside, you gave me a question here relating to the Public Finance Management Act. It is very clear. For anything to be funded, it has to be unforeseen. I think the two criteria is unforeseen. We shouldn't have foreseen anything to happen, and it happens, and unavoidable. And those are clear terms, easily explainable, basic English, that our country at the time of budgeting, we could not foresee DEI having financial distress. And it is unavoidable. So now, if you look at DEI itself, it came in, I think, 2021 in July. I remember it was opened and General Museveni called Ruto and they opened it. Government has been giving it a lot of money and all that. now they're coming back and they want money. And what was worrying for me is that this money is not actually for production within their company. They are going to use it to pay off a loan from Equity Bank. And according to the submission of one of their staff, in the budget committee, if I'm mistaken, the Honorable will correct me.
Yeah.
He said they are borrowing this money so that they pay off Equity Bank. They are owing Equity Bank $100 million US. Now, that is not money for production.
Right.
It's a loss for our country. So our country is paying off a loan of a company that has not even started production. And that's where we are as a country. So for us, we want to oppose for a reason. And that's why we are opposing this particular government investment in DEI. We've seen a lot of government expenditure in different entities that we have questioned. You remember very well we had investment in ATIAC. If you look at the return to investment from ATIAC, it is questionable. We've been talking about Lubowa, the investment in Lubowa. We all know what was happening in Lubowa to the extent that even members of parliament could not be allowed to access the facility. We opposed the government investment in Roko. These are all private companies. Up to now, they have even failed to finish the construction of a building at Parliament. And government is putting a lot of money in these private entities. So there's so many questions that we need to raise to government for them to explain. And what was even more worrying for me was the opening remarks of the minister. He said, this company is so sick. On the floor of Parliament, it went on record. This company is so sick.
The drug manufacturer is sick. And
that's why we need to come to its rescue. I mean, which government puts money in a sick company? Even if we are buying shares, I mean, for argument's sake, do we buying shares in a company that is so sick and nosediving? So a return to investment should be checked. We need to know where will the government benefit in terms of this. So that's where we are as a country. That's where we are as Parliament. We want to oppose for a reason. In the interests of Ugandans, we are elevated to position of leadership to see the things and advise government. Of course, we are in the opposition. Our role is to tell them what they're supposed to do.
All right.
But more often we've seen them taking the wrong direction. But on this particular matter, investing that amount of money in a sick company is problematic, and we cannot allow it as Ugandans. We've seen so many...
We'll be looking to understand exactly how you will block it, especially if the powers that be do not stand, either give it some sort of a few weeks or a month, so to speak. But Mr. Mukunda, listening to the members of Parliament is honestly distressing, no doubt, because they give us the picture of something that is terribly wrong. The parameters for disbursement of this money are also not clear, but the fact that this farm has not been a year in operation, I think it was launched recently with fanfare, the president, of course, again, talking about the fact that he was launching a company in a building that he had presided over during COVID as one of the farms that would provide us with some vaccines. That's the story. It was also not very clear on its own.
My problem is that, they are crying for like me and you. And yet in the first instance is that we put here this parliament to check the excessive executive power.
Yeah.
That, like, if they bring a very hopeless bill, you throw it out and say, please go back and do a better homework. Me and you are not in Parliament to do that particular job. So I think it is still within Parliament that they should be able to ensure that what they pass is credible for us, protects our interest. At this particular moment, they have completely failed. Why? Because in 2004, we gave Basaja about 21 billion. 2007, We gave Aya, the Aya brothers here, which I think they have sold $60 million. 2016, 1.3 South Sudan. 2023, 202 billion for local industries. I've not talked about Munyonyo, where the supplementary budget had a 50 billion for to pay off a loan to Uganda Development Bank. He has talked about Atiak, we are still grappling with it, Roboa. We've not even talked about Uganda Airlines. We keep on pushing money, putting in money there. It is making losses, but we keep on. I have not mentioned UTL. I don't know if it is still surviving, but it is still a government company. We are still putting in money. Now,
last week there was a meeting with top executives who were
I don't know what
also
they're doing.
concerned about
Just wrap it up and
powers.
just we bury it and forget about it. So, for me, is that the job, I have said it again, bailing out companies, both private and public, is not a problem. It's actually, it's good economics.
It's good economics. No
It has been done elsewhere else, and the companies have revamped back, and they have made a profitability. But there is a criteria you use to say, anybody who is in the street and falls in this category, you will definitely qualify for government assistance. And one of them is how much taxes have been contributing to this country. If you have been contributing zero, please pack up and go, because taxpayers have not benefiting from you at all. You have a huge, you're employing so many people, and you have other indirect people who are relying on you in terms of supply, the supply chain. Then you will say, okay, we need to do that because it has a spillover effect on the economy if you close it down. But failure to do that, then every Tom, Dick, and Harry will come for it. If you wake up on the wrong side, on the right side of the bed, you will bail out my honorable members here. If you woke up on the other side, then you will not bail out anybody else. Because people are asking, why couldn't we bail out Sembule, for example? Why couldn't we bail out Greenland Bank? Why could I mean, there are so many other local content that as a country would have been very interested in investment. We had a conversation somehow which somebody was saying that actually it's not good to rely on foreign direct investment only. Because if there is anything in the economy, everybody will pack up and go. But your own will remain with you in thick and thin. So giving this company, for heaven's sake, where you don't even know the value of the company and you want to give it money. You don't know the value because the next morning, this owner will come up and say, actually the money you gave me is equivalent to 1% of my company. And that's it. You are out. But at the same time, these are the challenges we face in public investment management. The auditor general is telling us that 35% of the projects that we are implementing don't have visibility studies. 39% don't have concept notes. This is one of them. We have it's a project of government, dished in the money, we don't know the value. There is no visibility study on which type of drugs they are going to manufacture, where are they going to sell them. They have no business plan. So I think at the country we should say, let's forget about this, it's a loss. However, Parliament, I come back to Parliament for me. This is their job, for heaven's sake. Let somebody stand up and say, this is out of control, let us stop this. And when you come back and tell us that there is no money in the economy, some of us were saying no. The money is there, because if you can be able to get $500 billion Ugandan shillings, give it to one individual. Don't tell me that these potholders in Kampala don't have money. No. Money is there, but I think it's being used for some other things.
All right. That's interesting. You'll be talking to us about the source of the money that will go into either funding or bailing out. By the way, we should be able to understand this very clearly. Government is acquiring equity in Day Pharma Limited.
Yes.
As a move to ensure that sustainability is undertaken. It is another way of not saying we are simply throwing money at Day Pharma Limited.
Just remember, the company in the other financial year was given money, 145 billion shillings already. So this 578.4 is an addition. So the total public investment there will be 723.4 billion shillings.
Is it standard equity?
Yeah, now, you see, those are the questions we ask. We said, this equity, what kind of shares are we buying? Are they preference shares? Is it ordinary shares? Because with preference shares, you will not even have a president on the board. You will only get your money back after the company has made a profit, or when if it goes down, you take the first call. But in effect, it's like a donation.
But at least see for Rocco,
yes.
There was that clause which said the government of Uganda will be on the board.
Yes.
That the government of Uganda will approve any future loans for Rocco.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some kind of some measures put on it. This is just a blank check.
Let me say this. I think one of the challenges is that because I just saw the Kabushenga's narrative in the papers, where I was saying there was an attempted discussion at cabinet and 2 ministers were shut down and they couldn't discuss. So me, I personally feel there should be a discussion at cabinet, should be robust. And those ministers, if you can't don't talk, then resign, leave. Because if I can't...
Is that even possible in Uganda?
In Uganda, they should be able to do, so that you make sure that as a cabinet minister, you are able to have unfettered ability to advise the president. That's why you're appointed. But secondly, we have the only entity that represents us as a conduit for investment to any private entity is UDC. Now, UDC is under Ministry of Trade. Now, UDC, recently we were having the discussions in Munyonyo with the ministers of trade, including Honorable Mwebesa, and the new general appointed to the ministry.
General
Mbadi. And even Honorable Bahati. We are saying UDC is supposed to be our baby,
Yes.
an arm of investment. All these issues of day, of Rocco, whatever it is, let it come through UDC. And they have the capability of doing the kind of feasibility studies you're talking about.
That's right.
So that now we hold now UDC accountable because they're the technical people. But now you're holding Honorable Dr. Musenero. She's a medic. She has no idea about some of these complex financial instruments and how to structure this thing. Now, the Attorney General is, I've already seen my brother KK. What he does is basically to basically bring legal gymnastics, to put preference shares. Everything I've seen is preference shares. So for him, he has a term sheet now for us. That any government investment, there is a term sheet. He just changes the name and that is it.
You see, Honorable,
yes.
UDC comes to and says,
yes.
the company is sick.
Yes.
Like my is sick.
He's sick.
But we are getting in
Yes.
to make sure it recovers.
Yes.
That's perfect.
I have no problem.
I have no problem.
Yeah, so let's give...
Nobody's overseeing
Yes.
how this company is shaped, is planning,
Yeah.
there is
But
nobody.
the Speaker has instructed the Budget Committee to, as she put it, monitor and ensure that valuation is done. She's demanding full valuation report of the assets and the finances of the company. Has there been a timeline that has been put to this?
No, we have a timeline. Remember that this supplementary also is bound by the, how do I call it, by the end of the financial year. So on around 26 June, going into the closing, if they would not have done valuation, that money will go out of the window. They will have to start afresh in the next financial year because it will have been time barred. So if they can't run and get it done by now, before end of June, then they don't have the money.
But Honorable, do you even have is it your job to monitor a company? It's not your job. It's not your mandate.
It's not your mandate. But
and I don't know how they do it.
What tools does Parliament have
very
right
good.
now to do evaluation? For example, if UDC will not come forth as quickly as it ought to, I don't even think they've gotten an instruction to that effect, and then you desperately need to understand the asset base and how this company is. Of course, we already know, we've been told it's in debt distress, but how deep is it in debt distress? Do you have the tools to actually find out?
No, our work is oversight, really. We are not going to go inside there and then say, look at this valuation, look at the leg of this asset, look at the asset register, go and do the architectural designs and say, okay, the costing. That's too technical. That's too technical.
Yeah.
And the UDC, or the Auditor General, has the ability of hiring engineering firms to come and say, go and do for me this valuation. There are government valuers who can actually go and do it. So there are different facets of the work at the day which require different technical people. If you say this particular equipment was brought from this place at this price, then you have technical medical engineering people to go and look at it, and then you also go and sort for world prices to establish whether this thing is correct.
So how do we avoid this collusion course in case this particular information, valuation, is not provided by the people you think will provide it on time? How do we avoid this collusion course? Will MPs say
it falls flat?
It falls flat.
No, it falls flat. If they cannot do the valuation, then Parliament has approved it with conditions. So you can't go and give away the money and then you have not done valuation. Then we are in a crisis.
You're speaking very pragmatically. We know how Parliament works and you've been in it.
Yes.
This thing could pass even without a valuation report coming through, and that would be a kind of...
It will be a negative expenditure at the end of the day. You know, one thing I tell public officials, that you see, information stays, whether it is hard copy like this, parliamentary Hansard remains, or money transaction, the trace is there, it's there, and internet does not forget. So even if this regime is no longer in place, in future, remember now the Speaker of South Africa, she was a minister. She did something wrong when she was a minister. She moved forward. She became a speaker. Now the ghost of the work she did got her when she was in a much higher position. And where is she?
Honorable Chirumira, does Honorable Semuju Nganda stand any chance with his minority report on this?
Of course, that takes us back to the comments made by senior economists. You see, in that parliament has two sides. We have the opposition to where it belongs, led by the Right Honorable Joel Senyonyi, and of course the government leader of business with his team. And under such circumstances, the question is always raised by the Speaker of Parliament, the presiding officer, as to whether investments must be done or not. And we all know what happens. The eyes always take it. And the eyes belong to the NRM government plus some independent honorable colleagues. So that house has people with sober minds that will stand up and say no. And actually I want to credit the Honorable Semuju Nganda for bringing these issues very systematically and explaining to Ugandans as to why we shouldn't invest taxpayers' money into such sick companies. And what was more worrying, one of the issues he mentioned, was that this money is actually not borrowing. The government is not borrowing to fund Day and Magola, but rather the government is redirecting funds. We are diverting funds from public debt financing. Government has borrowed money in the past. We are supposed to pay off the debts, but now we are putting that on hold. We're not paying off our debts, and we want to use that money to invest in a sick company. To its future, we do not know. So that's where the problem is. And we need to define, as Parliament, we need to define and possibly persuade our honorable colleagues in the NRM, on the NRM side, that what is wrong, and it has to be condemned. We were elevated to position of leadership to lead on behalf of Ugandans. Now, if you cannot see something wrong and refuse and oppose it, then we are doing a disservice to the people of Uganda. This money being invested in a sick company is a wrong idea for a parliament. It's a wrong idea for a country, Uganda.
You know, you asked him about what tools they have. And I don't think at this particular moment Parliament has any tools to influence government expenditure. Let me tell you why. One is that if they cannot even monitor war, which is, it is not even verified. You can even walk to war, by the way. You can't monitor war. How will you force government to do an evaluation of the money you have now appropriated. So they just lost it at the committee stage. At the committee stage was the time to say, no, go back and put your house in order, then come back.
No, the next time we go to day company, we shall find security.
No, I mean, or if
no
you haven't
find
it there anyway, if it's there anyway, if you find it there anyway. So that's why
could be an open warehouse.
It will just be an open warehouse. And so I think it's very important for members of parliament to understand that it is critical for government to put a procedure, because this is not the last company going to bail out. Others are coming. To put a procedure that will allow how companies are going to be bailed out. Because what is even funny is that even as a government, you are being bailed out by IMF. We are being bailed out by IMF. But now we are very generous that out of, in terms even of our challenges, we can still bail out others. And that is perfect. However, procedures are very important. He mentioned something about supplementary budget. Let me tell you, an expense like this is avoidable. You can say, we don't need it now. An expense like this was not predictable. You know, it is not something that you know, it was predictable. It is, this company already had problems. We knew about it. Yeah. Why couldn't we plan for it? But also, an expense like this, I mean, government should have been able to say, considering the challenges we face as a country, let us put this one in the next financial budget, which is ending in the next 2 months.
Yeah.
2 months, yes.
And then you budget for it. So you are abusing the whole supplementary budget in this country and abusing the process. So there must be some discipline.
And
pray for the media, because we find ourselves very often in a spot of bother where what is happening behind the scenes is not linear, not clear, and does not conform to the needs of the law. And then we have to report and interrogate these matters like we are attempting right now. And to the outsider out there who is watching, sometimes it is distressing that first and foremost, the company itself, we do not know its particulars. But then the most important thing is that the how of this money is going to be dispersed is also not clear. As members of parliament, do you ever fall back into points of reflection? You've talked of the ministers resigning in case they are shut up, especially when they are, you know, opining on these matters, because at the end of the day, what is the importance of being there if you won't talk? As members of parliament, you continue to do this job, you continue to attend plenary and the committees, well knowing that the government in place does not, in speak, give what the Americans call a damn to you and what you think and what you're going to opine. How does that sit with you on a daily? Because we need to understand you guys.
of course, rules are rules.
You're also victims of this
Laws
system.
are laws, and they should be obeyed. Else we are savages, and that's a fact. So our responsibility as leaders is to make sure that we bring government to the books. The laws are very clear, like I've mentioned. Actually, one of the points of dissent of the Honorable Semjunganda towards that particular funding was non-compliance with the law, and that makes it categorically clear that the law is very clear. We've mentioned the Public Finance Management Act, mentioning that for anything to be funded, it must be unavoidable and unforeseeable. That's what the law provides for. When they were sitting in their shadow cabinet, I think there was in their cabinet rather, there was a decision that for government to fund this particular company, this criteria must be met. I think there was provision of the memorandum of association,
valuation report.
Exactly.
Share offers.
None of that.
Resolution of the shareholders to have the.
None of that was provided for before the committee. So basically, we are not following. The government is not following the law, and that's where we find ourselves in a very bad.
In a way, as you submitted, respond perhaps to his what he has just shared. Are you comfortable being seen to have been on the right side of the law, and that is...
You see, we operate under a constitutional democracy. And even in the US, which we know has a lot of checks and balances, you know, US can actually run without a president.
Yeah, no doubt.
And a lot of things can happen. The systems are well established. But you could imagine Trump now, he said he wants to introduce some form of dictatorship in America. Now, in our constitution, we have given the presidency a lot of powers. The president has a lot of powers. How many people does he appoint? He appoints literally everyone. He has a lot of excessive powers. That's why there was a talk of constitutional amendments. Now, and we have been actually discussing about the nexus of parliamentary supremacy. How does it converge, that nexus with the presidential powers? So there is a confluence there. So what you are delving into, you're actually saying is who is more powerful. It is one of the professors was saying that a constitutional democracy, the observance of the rule of law can only be done, can only be achieved when all the parties have the goodwill to exercise to make it happen. For example, during presidential petitions, the president is made accused of certain things as a winner. Then he has to go to court. I saw him signing on the what? On the court documents so that he could have his matters in court. Now, so he's subjecting himself to the law, to the constitution. Then if the court gives orders that, you know, my brother here is not guilty and is set free, him as the president, because he has the control of instrument of power, he has to make sure nobody touches him. No soldier, no security person, he is scot-free. Yet he has the power. That's presidential executive powers. So even when it comes to parliamentary matters, if Parliament says this thing is wrong, as the president, and if this is the mandate of Parliament, that's why, although if they are behind the scene pushing, but he has to say, but this is the work of Parliament. Let Parliament go and approve. If they approve, so be it. If they don't approve, maybe I have to get a caucus, and then I'm twist.
Parliament made a stand on its own.
But I don't want you to make it to appear that our president doesn't give a damn. I think he does. And the fact that these matters are discussed in cabinet and it comes to the committee and to the main house. So, but if I have the majority in Parliament and I want something done, that's why even in the US, if somebody dissents, you are actually like rammed down like anything if a president wants something passed.
That's what could be happening because the president understands that he has the majority and he's going to take sway. So whether he actually demonstrates that he's interested or not, it's going to be to his advantage. So he can as well sit back.
But for me, I think we have used that too much. Because
you think the president doesn't want it?
No. I think Parliament has used that as a scapegoat. Why do I say that? When Parliament is interested in an item, it passes. When we are here talking about when Parliament was passing a bill, exempt themselves from paying taxes. And it went to the president, and the president threw it back. Parliament said, no, we are not going to pay. And the president budgeted. So where Parliament is interested, definitely it will happen. And it happens that when Parliament has a self-interest, even the president knows that he won't be able to move on. But where Parliament, I think sometimes I feel so sad to see my friends who are very highly educated look as if they have never gone to school.
It's exactly what I said.
Because really, you have a company that you have no value, and you've passed $500 billion Ugandan shillings. Yet in your constituency, roads are bad, there is no water, hospitals have no medicine, children are still under trees. I mean, but you come up and say, $500 billion is gone, and you know actually it's going to be lost, but you stand up and say, no, it's because the president wanted it. I think that is a lie. We are being lied to here. There is some high incompetence somewhere that somebody is not doing his job properly. if Parliament works...
And that includes MPs.
For me, I take it to Parliament because their first job is to control the excessive power of the executive. Oversight, period. And they would have thrown it out, and I'm telling you, these people would have gone back, put their houses to order, they would have come back to Parliament with the proper documentation. But simply because now there is this twisting, whipping, everybody now says, yeah, and then you don't know even what they have decided on, for heaven's sake.
Submit quickly, and then we can talk of something on how a policy can even be framed.
I think our economists will be very instrumental during the campaign period. Because we all know...
Wait a minute.
We all know the narratives of the NRM government. That whoever is yellow, you must elect. I remember this one statement, Chidomola. Even if it's a Chidomola, you must just what? Elect. I'm being very honest with you. So with all due respect, wakes up from the sleep and can vote. Yeah, with all due respect, you look at the whole house, and then we're waiting for reasoning, especially when it comes to this, and then the election period comes in, and then the conclusion is done. Why? Because at the period of elections, the voters were more interested in the alcohol, they were more interested in the money, they are more interested in vote,
tablets of soap,
in soap,
and salt.
And now we are suffering with the consequences of the election period. So whatever is happening now is a consequence of our electoral process, and we need to change that as you can.
Gentlemen, let's quickly reference the U.S. government policy, not policy as such, but the history of bailouts, especially in light of solutions, because I want to make the morning show not another opportunity for opening the Book of Lamentations, but where are the solutions, and how can we excavate whatever energy that we can in order to come up with something that is clear, so that bailouts can be understood for what they are, and for those that are in business for the right reasons, especially those that are paying taxes, can actually understand that if things go south, this is how we are going to help ourselves stay afloat. The U.S. government has, of course, that long history of bailouts going back to what's described as the Panic of 1792. Since then, government has assisted financial institutions during the 1989 savings and loan bailout, rescued the insurance giant AIG, funded government-sponsored homelanders Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, stabilized banks during the 2008. They were deemed too big to fail. You know, that was officially the Emergency Economic Stabilization Act of 2008. Shouldn't this type of legislation be something you should expedite as members of parliament, so that we have, before government comes through, there is something of a way of doing things that you can establish?
We need an enabling law where we can even clearly identify strategic areas where government can intervene.
That is right.
Because now it is wide open, and it is based on those who can reach the presidency. And how many people can reach the president?
Very few.
Very, very few. So we need to have a policy in place.
These days, I know some who are using TikTok videos to rant. They've reached the president.
They rant, and they say very unsavory things, so that the president can get their attention. So that should happen really, so that we have a legislation, so that when it's coming, we know. And we know that there's a criteria which has been established, and nobody will even question it. And also, I think there should be also a lot of things in terms of return on investments. Because if you look at where we have put money, Lubowa, Atiak, Roko, now we are going today, you know, Munyonyo. So the return, we were actually in Munyonyo as parliament. Now, where there is the Commonwealth Hotel, our friends from there don't put guests there. They put guests in other. I'm told there are 3 hotels in that one place. So most of the guests are parked somewhere else, so that this one where Uganda has a stake continues to provide for losses year in, year out. So there's a sinister thing that is happening. So in terms of return on investment, why should we put money anywhere at all? And the second thing is also, we must allow UDC and the team who are more technical to be the lead agency to the vehicle for such investments.
Okay.
And it should be scripted. But otherwise, if now Dr. Musenero will come with one, said, me, I also have day. Then somebody comes up and said, me, I also have this one.
All right.
it doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Mr. Mukunda, I'll be coming to you very shortly. Don't worry. Mr. Mukunda, when it comes to any benchmarks that are available within Africa, I think Botswana has some very good economic benchmarks that can be copied, especially when dealing with matters economics and how to survive troubled waters like we for the companies here. Is there anything that you can, I know before you ask for the consultation fees, is there anything that you can share on how a stabilization fund looks like?
Yes, you see, bailouts, you don't want to encourage companies to be more riskier because they know that government is going to come and bail you out. You don't want to score moral hazard. You don't want to do that. You put measures to ensure that actually if you were responsible for this particular challenge, then you actually, it becomes personal. For example, when Biden recently was rescuing some two banks, there are some two banks that had failed late last year.
Yes.
He said depositors' money will be paid. However, people who have stocks, management fees, or that one is out.
It's out, yes.
No, that's you are sending a signal that you make a mistake,
yes,
you will pay for it.
That is right.
And I think that's what is missing here. Here we say, don't worry, if you make a mistake, we shall definitely rescue out. And that sends a wrong precedent, even to hard-working companies, that, hey, if this one can be rescued, yet me, I'm working hard, what happens? If you can rescue a company because it has failed to pay taxes, what about me who has been working hard to pay taxes? So you don't want to send a very wrong signal. Therefore, a law is required in this country to say those who would want to be rescued, this is the criteria. And I think for me, UDC did work on it. The best work that we should have given Day was to go and tell UDB, can you buy off this date? So that this company then
convince UDB.
Yes, convince them and say, look, there is here a toxic debt. Because in the business they do that. There's a toxic debt, we are buying it off for you so that you still pay. Because as of now, this company knows the debt has been paid off. Actually, probably they should be somewhere relaxing on a beach because work has been done. So let's put a criteria properly so that others, even a small company in Otoke,
yes,
because we know COVID affected very many companies. Where is Binzika? Can you talk about it?
Binzika.
It was a household name on any poultry farm. Where
why wasn't it rescued?
Why wasn't it rescued? Because if this policy was
it also got loans, so
yes, yes, exactly. It also got loans, but if there was poor management, and that's why we say we need expertise, because we know in most companies expertise is missing. Managing companies is expertise is missing. Yes. So I think for me that really can help us in terms of ensuring that our companies stay vibrant, our companies stay strong, but also we promote better corporate management in some of these particular companies.
I'm glad you do open the audience's eyes to something that does happen. You know, the public sector is much talked about and much looked at because it's the public sector. But the private sector, usually, by the time it gets looked at, things have gotten so bad. But there is a lot that is happening in the private sector on its own. You had a submission to make, but also help us understand. Honorable Mara talked about the fact that Parliament's role is simply oversight. But for example, if you bail out a company, like we did for JULIUS in Teso, aren't you supposed to ask questions thereafter? We did this, what happened to the money that we appropriated for this particular endeavor? How has it performed? Is it even performing? Maybe it would create a trajectory that people can believe that Parliament is doing the job that it's supposed to do.
Actually, you've put it very right. One of our responsibilities to do oversight on government projects. I sit on a committee on national economy that borrows that borrows money.
Somebody was wondering how you sit to discuss how you're going to borrow.
I've seen money being borrowed by this country ever since I joined Parliament. Of course, more often I've prepared minority reports. But you look at the productivity of loans, and it's no way.
Nothing to write home about.
Exactly. I do not remember our committee, or even Parliament, going to projects. Of course, we went to this. We went to the electricity plant in Karuma, generating plant. Besides that, I do not remember us and we've been borrowing money to invest in that, so basically, there's something lacking when it comes to monitoring these projects where government is investing money. Of course, we went to Lubowa. We all know what happened in Lubowa. We went to Speak Resort Munyonyo, and we know in the process of building that facility, we could not access it to see where government is investing money. At one stage, actually, I remember Shudin said, if you want, government can take its money. I do not want it. That was his statement. But anyway, where government is putting money, there should be transparency. We need to know, especially on the ownership of the company where the government is investing money. Now, that's why the Honorable Semju was asking, who is actually the owner of this day company? Is it the Magola, or there is someone behind? We do not know as government, and we are putting money into a company that we do not know the ownership. So transparency is very critical, especially when it comes to ownership of the company. We all know what happened with this lady who wanted to take over the coffee, Penetti, and then things started coming up. People started asking who is the real Penetti and all that. So right now, Ugandans would want to know who is the real Magola, if it's actually not Magola investing, rather putting money in Day. And then the last one, and this was more intriguing, the former shadow minister, the Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi, brought data to Parliament that in Kenya, a similar facility was set up by technology, biotechnology firm Moderna. It was set up at a tune of 500 million US dollars. And it's fully functioning. If you look at the amount of investment that we are making to set up this day company vis-a-vis what was invested in Kenya, it is so appalling.
Interesting. We shall be transitioning from the Day Farmer Limited. But one question, Honorable Mara, have you checked the company registry for Day Farmer Limited? Because as a country, all the agencies that register these companies ought to have this data available for us. We can quickly understand who owns Day Farmer Limited.
We noted, if I can remember, there is Magola, then there is another lady. The rest I don't remember.
Directors. As directors, yes. Okay, and then shareholding?
The same thing with shareholding. Still Magola and the associates. They're there, they're registered. So, but what we were asking was, a moment we reach valuation, then as the shareholders, they need to sit down and make a shareholders resolution and offer us a number of shares equivalent to, after we have authenticated the value. Exactly what my brother was saying. Supposing you put, now we are going to put 723.4, almost $1 trillion. Yes. Then the man tells you, with all this money you put, you're only holding the tail, you're up 5%. So
you have no to discuss on the board?
Because he has already asserted that he has put in $500 million. Now, this $500 million, if we are going to buy it or part of it, it's a valuation process basically that will clarify.
All right, there are other allocations, including 166 billion that is going to the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development for support for municipal infrastructure development, and there is also the external financing for competitiveness and enterprise development project. There is additional funding that is CEDPAF, and there is 66 billion for compensation, among others. 13.6 billion is going to KCCA to cater for shortfalls in wages. I think this is in light of the casual workforce. This has been an ongoing dilemma, especially when it comes the fact that this country can have agencies where casual workers, the ones you drive past in the morning as they are sweeping these roads, any small mistake, simple lapse in judgment can throw them off, but somehow they take 6 months without pay. Even the pay they get is very minimal. I think it's a case of prioritization of our interventions as a government, but in light of these particular allocations that are being made, especially to the Minister of Lands and Housing, and do you see value for money this time around? Is there the possibility, because in the papers, if I must check, there is something about USMD roads in Mbale, that is in the Daily Monitor. It's a World Bank project.
Yes, that's those are some of the monies that these projects are all at their tailmost end.
That's page 10.
And they had not utilized that money. So for them to utilize it again, and they had not put in the budget, Parliament needs to appropriate it. This supplementary also had, had funds from local governments. Local governments, when they collect their money, they put it on the concerted fund. However, some local governments had under-budgeted. They say we shall collect 100 billion, then the Parliament appropriates. But now they have collected 150. So that 50, you can't spend it until Parliament appropriates that money. So, but you see, this supplementary budgeting had to make, there are two things you can really conclude on it. One of them is that there is planning is still inadequate, because you have a district, you say I have 100 million, but you collect 150, which means that all along we have been underestimating your revenue performance. So planning for revenues has been a difficult part. So they need to do that. For projects, again, is that these are projects really that you should have known the pace at which you are working on to be able to say, yes, I will need this money even before the year ends. But at the same time, you want to ask yourself is that you've passed the supplementary 2 months to the end. Why don't you wait? Why don't you put this money in the next, so that you don't abuse the process, so that this money comes, at first June, I mean 1st July, you are able to start to start implementing the activities that you want. So we still have inadequate planning in executing government work, and that brings all these things. The other element I think we also need to understand is we talked about the wages of health workers, and I've said it again. How can you be a KCCA and you don't plan for wages? I mean, really, if you're an accounting officer, KCCA, because the first call on your budget is statutory, are wages. How can you spend 6 months without doing that? Okay, first month they can be forgiven. But 6 months, that's unforgivable. But what we have realized in our work is that you find out that the first thing that gets onto the call on your budget are the things that, like travel abroad, special meals, things that really are not at the core of that particular agency. I usually give an example of UNEB, but they don't do that. But it's a good classical example. If UNEB does not budget for marking exams, none of us is likely to see it until they ask for a supplementary budget. So we need a quality assurance mechanism at the planning and budgeting stage to first ask a question: what is your core mandate?
I think there's something about deliberate actions by some of these accounting officers, because the budgets for drivers at KCCA are efficiently rolled out every month. And then somehow, somewhere, the sweepers and some other casual laborers, things don't work out exactly. Anyway, all right, so Mr. Chirumira, Honorable, I know now we want some sort of hand-holding, especially for us, the media and the outsiders, on what you're going to do in light of a stalemate, not a stalemate as such, but if your particular point of view as raised and concerns are not met, especially with regard to the valuation report. are we going to sweep this under the carpet and then wait for the next supplemental and then make the similar noise?
Of course, given precedents set in Parliament, we all know what is going to happen. And that's a fact. But what I want Ugandans to appreciate on this is that our budget, the original budget that we made was 52.7 trillion. Then there was a supplementary schedule last year of 3.5. And now this supplementary schedule number 2 is 1.1 trillion. So bringing our budget to 56.4 trillion. Now, what Ugandans are crying for are the roads in Kampala, roads in Wobblands, in Katikam South. Then you look at the expenditure of government, because part of this supplementary schedule is expenditure by State House, and that we cannot run away from that. If you compare the expenditure by State House, the amount of money that is going to be spent on that vis-a-vis the amount of money that is needed to sort out our issues in Kampala in terms of pothole, the gap is big. So priorities for a country are not an issue, I want to believe. So we need to be very patriotic. We need to love our country, even if it's actually the leaders from government, from State House, Genome 7 down to the peasants of Katikam.
No, say it. We want him to be more
patriotism. We need to love our country.
I think just to agree with him to a great extent, you know, the State House is now duplicating ministries. You know, the president made a very strong case about rationalization of agencies. So, for example, you have UNRWA and Road Fund mirroring Ministry of Works, you know. So it is duplication. But you find now at State House, literally every ministry is being duplicated at State House. So you have, there's a land section at State House. You have this one at State House. So
I think that's because over the years, State House has positioned itself as the clearing house.
No, over the years, ministries and agencies have weakened, and therefore they cannot deliver services.
You can't blame the ministries.
On the budget.
There is a deliberate...
And somebody had now take it over.
Why should there be a land section in the office of the president when actually there's Ministry of Lands?
That's why I'm saying
with the competent, with commissioners, with everything.
Yeah, there's a deliberate plan to ensure.
Why should there be anti-corruption unit in the office of the presidency when you have the IGG, you have...
now they are RDCs.
So duplication has become a big issue. So that also speaks to this kind of investment that we are talking about. If you have UDC in a place which can now undertake this process, why should now every ministry have their own investment arm?
But UDC can't even now dare to ask a question.
No, but you see, that's the point we're raising.
Yes.
You put up a system.
Yes.
You put up an institution to help you decide on national investment decisions.
Yes. And you don't use it.
You decide to ignore it. And only give it investment, and give it money to invest in areas you've already decided. You have not even given them a chance that simply is, this is the money, look out for investment.
Look out for investment, yeah.
If you decide, I'm very sure if you decide their own powers, they will get out of Atiak. If you decide their own powers, they will get out of Omonyonyi. But they say, here is the money, please, but make sure that you pay. You are not giving it the freedom to make the right decisions.
Or even the latitude to do the investigations, the analysis, and the feasibility study to come back and say, we have looked at this thing. This thing is very sick. You can't rescue it. Let it die. We need a new,
gentlemen,
a new conduit.
All I hear is that we've cried enough to the president and the powers that be to ensure that institutions do their job.
No, there's a lot there are a lot of things that need to be corrected by him. Yeah, it's a fact.
I think we've thrown the ball effectively to the president to be able to sort out the mess that is the economy. I hope that message is very, very clear. Talking of sorting things out, KCCA is attempting to tackle the issue of pollution, and since we've just talked about...
Can they tackle potholes first, for heaven's sake, and deal with that?
Can they start with potholes first?
All right, those questions are being heard by our reporter on the ground.